All right, welcome. It's your man God of Dots back with another NFL preseason prediction show. If you missed yesterday's show, make sure you go check it out. And as always, remember to like, share, subscribe, and all that goody stuff. Leave comments, thumbs up, thumbs down. Doesn't matter. Just engage. How you doing, Miss VS? Yes. I decided to do another show. Kind of do a follow up to yesterday's show. If you missed yesterday's show. We're looking at the NFL season's about to really get into prime time gear. Training camp starts next week for rookies, young players, and the veterans will be in a week after that. Preseason game, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be the first weekend Hall of Fame game in August. That'll be the first preseason game. We will start to really get a look at how these teams are looking coming into the upcoming season. So yesterday's episode, we kind of focused on teams that I would consider outside of the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you missed my Kansas City Chiefs preview, hey, it's up on the channel. Go check it out. If you missed that, I didn't pick Kansas City. I wanted to kind of leave them separate. They are the defending champions. They are the presumed favorite, maybe not a heavy favorite, but are presumed favorite to once again be in the chase for the Super Bowl. But yesterday's episode really focused on, the teams that I feel are heavy contenders to not only come out of their divisions, come out of their conference, but also possibly win the Super Bowl. But today we're going to look at the second tier of teams. The second tier of teams are teams you may consider dark horse guys, just on the outside, just a little bit more question marks than the teams that are considered to be favorites in their conference. So we're going to take a closer look at them, and starting on Monday, we will be doing a team by team breakdown as we get into the season, into the preseason. We're going to look at rookie battles, position battles, who's in, who's out, changes that they made, all of that good stuff. But like I said, tonight's episode, we're going to really focus on the next tier of teams. And when we're talking about the next tier of teams that are solid playoff contenders. You can see them being in the playoffs, but they have a little bit more question marks than the teams that would you be considered favorites. I.e., we're going to start with the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers, a team, the young quarterback, older receiving core. Do have a running back, Austin Eckler, who is a do-it-all kind of running back. If you're not a fan of the Chargers, you may not have watched him. You may not watch him on film. But he's a very good running back. They have made some changes to the offensive line. The question marks that you have with the Chargers are on the defensive side of the ball, and not necessarily talent. I think they are talented enough to not only compete for the division, but also possibly compete and make it to the Super Bowl. But the questions that you have to have on defense is related around injuries, and injuries are a big concern when we're talking about teams making it through the season and being competitive at the end. Injuries play a role in that. At some point, some guys are going to get hurt. Some guys are going to get nicked up. By the end of the season, it's really a war of attrition. That's how the NFL season is set up, and it makes it beautiful because injury could take a team out. But when we're talking about the Chargers, the injuries that they have had to some of their key players on the defensive side of the ball, namely Joey Bosa and Derwin James on the back end, when healthy, this is one of the better defenses in the AFC from top to bottom. When we're talking about the back end, when we're talking about the linebacker core, and we're talking about that front defensive line, Joey Bosa makes the defensive line a whole lot better. The amount of attention that has to be paid to him, the amount of people. How you doing, Miss Murph? The amount of people that got to be locked in when playing against him, and then you also have to be concerned about Derwin James. Derwin James can go deep. He can cover deep. He's able to diagnose plays. He's also able, with his size, his frame, and his skill set, also able to line up in sub linebacker packages when they go nickel or go dime. They want to get another safety out on the field. Derwin James is able to slide down into that Mike linebacker position, depending on the set that the teams are running. But, like I said, more question marks than anything. Is Justin Herbert ready to make that jump? I think Justin Herbert has the talent to do that. He's shown that since his rookie season, since he's been in the league. The question marks you have to have is that receiving core. Is this really a receiving core? Where we're breaking it down, we're looking at the receiving cores of all the top teams. They don't match up with Kansas City. They don't match up with Buffalo, and they don't match up with Cincinnati when we're talking about the talent on the receiving end. Keelan Allen is a much older player coming off an injury. He was still able to get separation, but it's no longer a deep threat. Mike Williams, big body. It's not a burner. They tried to address that in the draft, try to address that through free agency. What that looks like when they get out on the field, I don't know. Like I said, and I think the offense, as you saw in the playoffs, is going to kind of hold them back. They are kind of mistake prone. Justin Herbert is a gunslinger. He's able to put the ball in spots that most other quarterbacks can't, but he's also known to put the ball at risk. So, Chargers are an outlier team. I don't see them winning the division, but I can see the Chargers possibly making the playoffs. Another team that I have, like I said, is my fringe championship contenders tier. This is what we're going to call it. I'm not going to go dark horse because these are not the surprise team. We'll probably get into the surprise teams tomorrow, or we kind of look at that. But you have to kind of look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville coming off a playoff appearance. You have Trevor Lawrence. You have ETN back there in the backfield. You have Calvin really been added to the receiving core after coming off his year-long suspension for gambling. I'm impressed by some of the moves they made as far as like adding players to the offensive line. Now, they did lose Brandon Scherf, one of the best guards in the NFL. They did lose him in free agency, but I think Jacksonville is making moves and headed in the right direction. Questions you got to have about Jacksonville, same questions you have about the Chargers when we're talking about turnover. Trevor Lawrence, as talented as he is known to put the ball in danger. You saw that in the playoff game. I want to say was 4 picks in the first half. A young guy that's making suspect decisions, and I think he'll be a lot better in the system. Second year with the head coach, I think he'll be a lot better in this system. Questions I have about Jacksonville are on the defensive side of the ball. They've drafted high for a number of years, do have a lot of talented players on the defensive side of the ball, but is it something about the defense crumbling at the wrong time? Defense not being able to step up in clutch time situations, getting the stop, getting the team off the field. You saw that in a lot of the games that they ended up losing last year, and you saw that in the playoffs. Also, this can't stop teams. Can't stop teams when you have to. Pass rush is kind of hit or miss. They, like I said, they do have a lot of talent that they drafted high up in the draft over the past couple of years. But it just hasn't come together. Maybe this is the year they come together. Maybe, another year of maturity, another year playing together. Maybe this defense rises to the top. The benefit I have for Jacksonville is, like I said, being a playoff team is the division is weak. And the division is weak. You have Indianapolis possibly starting a rookie quarterback. Houston starting a rookie quarterback, not much talent there. Probably the only talented team you have in that division that could possibly challenge is the Tennessee Titans. But I'm not too big on Ryan Tannehill coming back, especially coming back off an injury, leading this team into the playoffs. I'm just not that big of a fan of it. But like I said, Jacksonville, by default, the division winner, but I don't see them being a serious contender. But I can see them being a playoff team. And if you can get into the playoffs, anything can happen. What's going on, Grom? Anything can happen. Anything can happen. A couple more teams to the AFC. Then we're going to switch it over to the NFC as far as my second tier of teams. Like I said, yesterday's episode, we looked at the top tier. Now we're going to look at the second tier. You got a couple teams out in the AFC East. AFC East, one of the most competitive divisions last year, top to bottom as far as win-loss total. I'm not going to put New England in that category. I'm not a fan of my Mac Jones. I don't think New England's done enough to address the deficiencies they have on offense. So they're not going to make this tier. But 2 teams in that division that's going to make this tier outside of Buffalo have Miami and you have the Jets. And the questions that you got to have with both of these, and you're going to find a trend here when we're talking about the second tier of teams in the league, when we're talking about quarterback play, potential quarterback play. Tua, when he is on and when he is healthy, has shown he can get the ball into his hands of his playmakers, namely Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They did lose Gesicki this offseason. I'm not sure what they their plan is for tight end. Have a decent enough running back core. Offensive line is okay. But it all boils down to Tua. He has an injury history. You saw that last year with the concussions that he had. Not the most reliable quarterback to make it through a season. And for me, that's a red flag. Now, the defense did get a little bit better with the addition of Jalen Ramsey this offseason. I like Jalen Ramsey on the outside, makes that secondary a whole lot better. The defense is a lot better than a lot of people will give them credit for. If you didn't watch a lot of Dolphins games last year, like I did, Dolphins have a pretty good defense. They have a defense good enough to possibly won the division. If you recall last year, at one point they were leading the division. Then Tua got hurt. Wheels just kind of fell off. And that kind of happens when you lose your starting quarterback in this league and your backups is just not backing up. It's I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. But Miami is one of my teams on this second tier. Like I said, if Tua is able to stay healthy, I think they have the weapons to compete with anybody. They showed that early in the season last year when he was healthy. Now, like I said, the question has got to be, can he stay healthy? Can he stay upright? I think this year is going to be a real make or break for Tua if he's able to make it through the season and put up the kind of numbers he was putting up. Because, for a point there last year, Tua was in the MVP conversation about how he was playing the first half of the season. If he's able to put up those kind of numbers throughout the season, maintain his health, I think he's in line for a big money deal. I think Miami may have solved the quarterback position for the foreseeable future. But with his injury history, I'm not going to the bank on it. I'm not going to gamble on that. I don't think Tua makes it through the whole season. And I think, that's going to hinder Miami from possibly getting into the playoffs. AFC for the past couple of years has been probably the most talented conference out of the two from top to bottom when we're talking about quarterback play, when we're talking about the talent level on these teams. Miami could be on the outside looking in if Tua gets hurt. But if Tua is able to stay upright, I think Miami has a chance to challenge for the division. You saw a glimpse of that last year. By what he was able to produce with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, two of the fastest wide receivers. You don't have to necessarily throw the deep ball to him because Tua doesn't have the arm strength to do that. But get the ball to your playmakers, let them make plays. Another team in the AFC East that I think is going to be fighting for a playoff position at some point in the season is the New York Jets. Look, I'm not a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. Not because of his play, which was subpar last year, just more of the attitude. I'm not sure how well that attitude is going to play out with a new team. I don't know how much that attitude is going to play out with the expectations being placed on him. Jets fans, if you are a Jets fan out there, hope you're listening. Like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. But if you're a Jets fan, you're hoping that Aaron Rodgers can turn back the clock, can give you way better. I think he'll give you better quarterback play than Wilson did last year. But you gotta, he is a much older player. He didn't play that well. He talked a lot about last year playing with young receivers that were new to the system, guys he didn't know, and that was kind of like his blame game. And you'll get a lot of that from Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, I don't know how that's going to play out with the New York media, throwing your teammates under the bus, not being held accountable for the decisions that you make and all that kind of good stuff. But I do think he's going to be an upgrade, definite upgrade at the quarterback position. I'm curious to see what Breece Hall, young running back they have there, what he looks like coming back off of injury. I do like the receiving core. Question marks got to be on the offensive line. Same questions that they had last year, they're going to have this year. I mean, they've done some things to address it. Maybe another year of cohesion. They do have some young players on the defensive line. Like I said, I don't know how that's going to play out long term. And the defensive side of the ball, you have one of the better defenses, not just in that division, not just in that conference. Have one of the better defenses last year in the entire NFL. Can do it all at all three levels. Has probably, I'm not going to say the best cornerback duo, but has to be in the conversation for one of the best cornerback duos. Sauce going to DJ Reed on the outside. It allows them to play more man, allows the safeties to do more roaming, more being down in the box, knowing you got guys that can lock it down. And the defensive line showed last year when healthy. And you're going to hear this a lot when we're talking about these teams when healthy. Quentin Williams was a monster last year, but can he stay healthy for a full 17? Can he stay healthy for a full 17? If I think the Jets, if they're able to get some breaks here or there, I wouldn't be surprised if this team's in the playoff. I'm not going to put them on that top tier as potential Super Bowl favorites. I don't think they can run through that top tier of teams. That's why they're on the tier that they're on. As far as the AFC concerned, we're going to get a look, probably tomorrow we're going to talk about maybe one or two dark horse teams, teams people are not really looking at, that I'm looking at that I think is going to be much improved this year and could possibly surprise a lot of teams. And two of them are in the same division. Two of them in the same division, but tune in tomorrow for that show. As we kind of flip the page here from the AFC to the NFC, not much to really go on here. As I was saying earlier, the talent in the AFC is a whole lot better than it is in the NFC. And once you get past the Super Three, talking about Dallas, talking about Philly, talking about Frisco, the second tier teams can be kind of hit or miss. We're going to start at the top of that list with the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings are running it back with Kirk Cousins. Offense is going to look a lot different this year. You no longer have Adam Thielen playing the number 2 position. You also don't have Dalvin Cook at running back, and we're going to talk about running back at the end of the show. I got some thoughts on that because we're going to kind of talk about the Saquon Barkley situation. If you've been keeping up, we're going to talk about it. If you haven't, I'll get you updated. But Minnesota Vikings are on that second tier of teams. Granted, they had a great regular season last year, but for me, that was a lot of smoke and mirrors. We watched a lot of those games and the Minnesota Vikings played. A lot of those were late game, close games, teams making errors, and Kirk Cousins, for the life of me, I don't know why people seem to not accept Kirk Cousins for what he is. Kirk Cousins is a 50-50 quarterback. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Kirk Cousins doesn't move the needle for me. He can put up good numbers. He can put up serviceable numbers. But if you're depending on Kirk Cousins to be lead dog and taking your team deep into the playoff waters, Kirk Cousins shows when the pressure gets tight, as you saw late in the season, especially in the playoffs, when the pressure gets tight, he tightens up. Now, I do like the fact that they have Justin Jefferson out there. Arguably, you can make an argument for him being the best wide receiver. Defensively, I'm not sold on Minnesota. Too many instances last year, especially down the stretch with his defense. It didn't bend, it didn't break, it got destroyed. I could probably point to the Cowboys game that they played late last year, where they went out there and got smoked. Didn't put up much of a fight. This defense doesn't really do anything particularly well. They don't really stop the run that well. There's not really a team that's got locked down on pass coverage. It's kind of a middle of the road team. I think this defense plays a lot better when they're playing ahead. But hell, you can say that about most teams in the NFL. If a team's got a lead that allows the defense to kind of pin their ears back and go get it. Minnesota, question marks for me. Lucky thing for them. They're playing in a division which, on paper, they might be seen as the favorite to win, but not for me. The team that I'm going with next, as far as my second tier teams, is my pick to win the division. That's the Detroit Lions. I think the Detroit Lions surprised a lot of people last year. As far as how well Jared Goff played, how well that offense plays. I think you got a true number 1 receiver out there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, granted, you do have to factor in the loss of Jameson Williams, who was suspended earlier this offseason for 6 games for gambling. You do have to kind of factor that in. What effect does that have on the offense? Like I said, I do like the pieces. I'm curious to see what the tight end position looks like. Last year they traded TJ Hawkinson, I believe, for a second round pick to the Minnesota Vikings. Does Jared Goff kind of come back to earth, or does he show that, hey, he's ready to take off in this particular system? For me, I think it's a make or break year for him. Jared Goff goes out there, bombs, team doesn't do well. I think the team could be in line to be drafting a new quarterback in the upcoming draft. And if you kind of looked at a lot of these mock drafts that have kind of come out, quarterback is probably the strongest, if not, it's one of, or if not the strongest position. And we'll kind of get into that later on in the season as we look forward to that draft. But if Jared Goff doesn't play well, they don't have a lot of money committed to him. They could be looking for a new quarterback. But the reason why I got Detroit is my pick. I think they got a lot better on the defensive side of the ball. I do like to pick up Devon Witherspoon. I do like the pickup of CJ Gardner-Johnson. I like his attitude. I like his positional flexibility. In the secondary, he can come down into the box if need be. I think Aiden Hutchinson will be a little bit better this upcoming season. Like I said, Detroit is my pick. When we're talking about second tier teams, but Detroit is my pick to win the division as it stands right now. I think the loss of Dalvin Cook is going to be a huge factor with Minnesota going forward. It kind of takes away the play action game that Kirk Cousins kind of thrives on. But those are my two teams as far as the second tier in that division. One more team, and I'm kind of looking at closely because I'm worried about the Saquon Barkley contract situation. Now, if you haven't heard, they extended him an offer, franchise offer. Saquon is looking for more long-term money. But as you've seen, and this has been a trend, I would say, for maybe like the last 10 years, very few running backs get to the bag. Very few running backs get to the bag, and very few running backs, see the end of that contract of them getting to the bag. I think the approach the teams have taken, especially since it's become such a pass-happy league, is like, we don't need a bell cow, 25 carries, running back anymore. We're able to do it by committing. If we have a running back, we want our running back to not only be good and in the passing game, but also be good at pass protection. It's kind of what made Dalvin Cook as valuable as he's been, and it's part of the reason why Saquon Barkley has been as valuable to the New York Giants as he's been. When he's been on the field, been healthy, the team has been competitive, and we're talking about competitive in a very tough division. I know Danny Dimes has got the money, but you're not winning any games with just Daniel Jones. I like him. I think he's a serviceable enough quarterback, but you got to have pieces around him, and probably the most important piece on that offense happens to be the running back who is, threatened to sit out. Now, he may sit out training camp. He may sit out some preseason games. I don't think Saquon runs the risk of actually sitting out regular season games. When I saw the game by game breakdown of his salary and what he stands to lose for each game he misses, you're talking about roughly $600,000 to prove a point per week. That's what his game check kind of breaks down to. When you break it down over the 17 game schedule, you're roughly talking about $600,000 a game. And I don't think Saquon is really in a position to be kind of losing that kind of money over the course of a year. That's just me. Hopefully they can come to some kind of agreement, because I want to see Saquon on the field. I want every team to be at full strength as they start the season. But the running back position is a position that's had to endure, probably for me, the most changes in regards to how teams view them and the kind of salaries that they're getting. I can remember back in the day, a player of Saquon Barkley's talent wouldn't even be having this kind of a situation. And we're talking about contract. How you doing, Keep? How you doing? Saquon Barkley back in the day wouldn't have been facing this kind of issue. A Dalvin Cook injuries, beside, it wasn't like career-ending injuries. A Dalvin Cook wouldn't have been cut for salary cap reasons. I just think the running back position, if you, I'm gonna say this, if you got kids and they play football, um, try to steer them towards positions, for one, that's going to allow them to play a very long time, and two, that's going to allow them to kind of get to a bag at a very consistent time. Now, I'm just going to say that running back position, for the most part, is being rearranged. Teams are saying, "Hey, I can find a guy in the third, fourth, fifth round to do what you do." Unless you're special, and even the special running backs, eventually wear and tear catches up to you. I look at the prime examples. We're talking about my Cowboys. I look at Zeke. Zeke came into the league, ball of fire, brought a different element to the game, brought a different feel to the Cowboys. But for all the time and the amount of carries that he was getting, the amount of touches he was getting, that catches up to you. And teams are just not willing to invest that much into the running back position. They'll put money to a pass rusher. They'll put money to an offensive lineman. They'll put money to quarterbacks. They'll put money to every other position but running back. Running back has seemed to be a position that has become so devalued over the past 10, I would say 10 to 15 years. The position has come devalued, and thus the money that they may have gotten back in the day for being the bell cow running back, it just ain't there, because teams ain't running it like that. Even if you look at it, if I think about teams that have like that type model of a running back, they don't want to pay them guys. Josh Jacobs for the Raiders, they don't want to really pay him. It's been talks of Derrick Henry possibly being moved, or depending on how he performs this season. Those days of the Emmitt Smiths, the Barry Sanders, the Jerome Bettises, those days are gone. Those days are gone, as far as like teams being loyal and faithful to them type of running backs, paying them like they need to be paid, paying them, period. But those days are gone. Those days are gone. But anyway, I have Giants, I got Lions, I got Vikings. NFC South is a very curious division, and as we kind of get into the breakdown next week by team, when I get around to doing, or if you want your team to be, whatever order it's in, make sure you leave a comment and all that good stuff, and we'll do it like that, if that's how y'all want to run it. But the NFC South, I don't see a team that's on that second tier, but I do see a couple teams, given the right kind of breaks, I could see them possibly being a playoff team. Now, I'm not going to call them, contenders, but that division is very wide open. You could really pick them out of a hat at this point, when we're talking about the NFC South. Yeah, NFC South. Yeah. And on that, while I kind of close out the show, my second tier of teams, I'm concluded with Seattle. I think Seattle has the pieces in place. I like some of the moves they made in the draft, like some of the moves they made in the off season. Keeper says, I always felt football is a dangerous sport as it is, especially with the tackles and all. I mean, every sport can has a hint of danger to it. Football is very physical, but so is boxing. Basketball is more physical than you may think. Um, it's not odd to see NBA players when the amount of wear and tear on your body, the running up and down the court, the jumping, the amount of wear and tear that puts on your body. Long term, that's why you don't really see a lot of these older basketball players like really moving like they used to move when they was playing in the league. They kind of hunched over, um, got like a little limp to them. It happens. It happens. You can't be running and jumping and doing all that kind of stuff and think it's not going to affect your body as you get older. It's just what it is. But yeah, let me kind of the Seattle Seahawks. As I kind of close out the show, Seattle Seahawks is on that second tier teams for me. I like what they did last year. I think Geno Smith knows his limitations. I think Geno Smith knows his limitations. He's not really going to take a lot of risk. He does have weapons on the outside, namely Lockett and that monster on the opposite side, DK Metcalf. Kenneth Walker showed that he can be a top line first tier type running back. In his rookie year, I think he'll be a lot better this year. I do like some of the pieces that they have added on the defensive side, namely on the defensive line. I think that's where they got mauled around a little bit. I think the secondary is okay. You do have a very good secondary out there, but I think they made some additions um, to that front. Probably the biggest one for me. I keep that. I'm giving away too much of my shows. Giving away too much of my shows. But anyway, that is my kind of second tier teams. Stay tuned tomorrow as we kind of break down the outliers, or I like to call them my dark horse picks. I got two for each conference, and both of those picks are in the same divisions for each conference. So I'm really looking forward to that. Like I said, next week training camp starts. We're gonna do a team by team breakdown. Lives every day. I was gonna do video uploads, man. That's too much editing work for that. If I'm trying to pump them out every day, it's just a lot of editing, a lot of voiceovers, a lot of work. Can't do it. Won't do it. Sorry. Okay, but let me kind of get up out of here. I appreciate everybody for coming in, taking a listen. As you know, remember, like, share, subscribe, leave comments. If I said something you agree with, let me know. If I said something you disagree with, which I say a lot of times that some certain people disagree with, leave a comment, man. It's all love. Thank you for coming out. And as always, I want to leave you with the phrase that pays around here on this show. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.